Hey, my Entrepreneurship Journey podcast family and listeners. If you're enjoying our content, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Even if you are listening to us for the very first time, please don't forget to subscribe. You know, by subscribing, you'll never miss a single episode and you'll be the first to hear of our latest insights and interviews. Plus, it really helps us to grow. Thanks for your support all the time and stay tuned for more. Fikile Mthwalo is a Lesotho-born actor who is best known for playing the role of Zak on the long-standing South African show Isidingo. She went on to become a series regular on ETV's Gold Diggers and starred in 2 seasons of Mzanzi Magic's series It's Complicated. Acting is Fikile's calling, but she continues to develop creative works of her own, such as Tech Bay, a digital series about women of color in tech. Fikile is also the founder of Glubbs, an eco-friendly disposable gloves brand. Glubbs was a recipient of an American Express grant and mentorship prize as part of their Founders of Change initiative to provide financial and educational backing for 100 Black female business owners. Fikile graduated from the University of Cape Town with a BA in film and video production. She received her MFA in acting from NYU. Fikile calls South Africa home and spends most of her time between New York and Los Angeles. On innovation, Jeff Bezos said, "Innovation is not about a one-time event. It's a continuous journey that leads us to new and better ways of doing things." While Steve Jobs said, "Innovation isn't about coming up with completely new ideas. It's about taking existing ideas and building on them to make them better." Fikile's story is testament of this. This is my Entrepreneurship Journey podcast. I'm Difuo Machele, your host, and welcome. Fikile, thank you. Thank you for coming to my Entrepreneurship Journey podcast. I know you're busy, but you set time aside to come and share your entrepreneurship journey with us regarding your business clubs. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and those kind words. I'm really not that busy. I know entrepreneurs like to give the impression like, oh my God, I'm so busy.
You're
I'm
so
not that busy.
That's great. You're funny. Okay, let's just jump right into it. So how was your childhood and early life?
So I was born in Lesotho, which is, landlocked by South Africa.
My country, yeah.
Yes, our country. So
Our country, Fikile, yes.
and I was born to a Mosotho father and a Tanzanian Kenyan mother. So, I sort of entered this world as a cultural mixie, and that feeling of not being 100% the same has always left me with this feeling of being a little weird. So I'd say my upbringing was a bit strange. I felt like the odd one out a lot of the times. I was always very creative, but I think I still had a really great childhood because I grew up in a place where you could walk outside and play with kids on the street. I went to Prep and Machabeng, which are international schools. And so, from that exposure of kids from other parts of the world was wonderful because you just learned how to, in a lot of ways, think differently, think out of the box, be more open-minded. I felt safe a lot of the times that I was there. There was a lot of nature. And so, I have a lot of good memories from growing up in Lesotho.
Beautiful country.
Yes, stunning.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And further on now you went as a young adult, you went to study film and video production at University of Cape Town and later did your master's in acting at NYU.
Mhm.
How was that like, your whole academic journey?
Yeah. So when I was 15 years old,
Mm,
my dad decided to transfer me from Machabeng to St. Michael's in Bloemfontein. And
right.
so, in that switch from that international, I think Cambridge based curriculum,
Mm,
I switched to the South African matric system. And there was a
mhm.
6 month gap. And in between that gap, I did everything. I was like, I'm going to figure out what I love to do in this gap and just do that. And somehow I ended up on listed to television, which at the
Oh,
time
yeah.
I did, which at the time only broadcast from, I want to say, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I was on a show called Little Things, and I was hosting really grown up topics, but I was so young.
Yeah.
But I just fell in love with it. I'd wanted to be on TV my whole life. I did not know how it worked. I had watched all the Yo TV presenters do their
Mm,
thing. And I was
mm,
like, I want to be those guys. So somehow I got myself on LTV presenting. I also did a fashion launch. I also
yeah.
worked for a construction company, and then I also worked for an IT company. And so by
Yeah.
the time I was done in that 6 months, I knew whatever I was going to leave school and do was going to be performance of some kind, like in front of the camera. So by the time I ended up at UCT, this is now after St. Michael's in Bloemfontein, after my gap year in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
I get to UCT and I'm like, film, this is it.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, when you're studying production, that's like behind the scenes. But I had my
Mhm.
little side hustles where I did commercials. I was in a Pond's commercial, I was in a ShopRite commercial. These brands should actually give out the
Yeah.
10%. Yeah, I want my
Yeah.
10%, guys, for mentioning you guys. Um, and I just fell in love with being in front of the camera. So after I graduated at UCT with this production degree, I was just like, no, I want to act. So I moved to Johannesburg and
Mm,
started my career there, where I did Isidingo, I did Gold Diggers, and I think my last hurrah last for a while was It's Complicated. And
yeah.
then
Yeah.
when I got a scholarship to go to NYU, it was such a big opportunity, and I couldn't say no to it. And that sort of started my American journey
Yeah.
um, with entertainment.
Yeah.
Um, and I've basically haven't left New York since.
Since, isn't it amazing that at that young age, you identified that this is my passion. I love this. As much as you were young, you got that stint at LTV and you loved it, and you were able to follow your passion and even went further on to study what you liked and what you loved and what you identified with. And it was amazing that your parents allowed you to follow your passion. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am similar to young people in my age group, African young
Mm.
people in my age group, in that there was tension around what I decided to pursue the studies that, and both my parents are scientists. So my dad was a mechanical engineer and my mom is a
Okay.
microbiologist.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's a lot of science in my family, which now I can be like, okay, so Glubbs, my company, does make sense, when I think of
Yes.
their background. But I didn't get the science degree through university. I got it through DNA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you did a lot of work. You studied your craft extensively and worked excellently as an actress as you appeared in Isidingo and the others. And do you still love and practice acting and or film production currently?
Yeah, I do. So that's the short
Mm.
answer.
Yeah,
I think I've had to strike a balance because, as you would know, like being an entrepreneur is no easy feat.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
creating something out of nothing, and it's
Mm,
having a vision a lot of the times that no one
mm,
else can see but you. And
mm.
you kind of have to keep going even though circumstances might indicate that you should stop. But I think that resilience was given to me honestly by my acting grit. As you probably know, also, that's not the easiest path
Yeah,
to choose.
Yeah.
You are constantly putting yourself out there for other people to decide that you're good enough. And so
Mm.
that constant rejection, if you allow it, can help you build a really thick skin around rejection. And so I think, when you're going out and pitching your business and selling your business to other people or other
Yeah.
businesses, when you
Yeah.
hear a no, it's not it's not earth shattering, because I've
Yeah.
heard no's so many
Yeah.
times through my
Yeah.
acting as well.
Yeah. And but what was that mindset change that led you to say, you know what, I'm going into entrepreneurship. I'm going to give it a shot.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, that's a good question. I
Yeah.
think it's actually existed for a long time inside of me, and that was because I was exposed to entrepreneurship from a very young age. So
Right.
entrepreneurship, as we understand it now, um, people will talk about starting an LLC or PTY Ltd, like
Mm.
registration, maybe getting a bank loan and then raising capital and then
Yeah.
equipment. Whereas in its purest form, um, entrepreneurship is identifying a need, a
Mm.
market for something, and then meeting that need, so
Yeah.
creating value, and then getting paid, right? And I
Yeah.
think Basuto people are very resourceful in that regard. So I
Mm.
always, I mean, also my grandfather had a butchery. My other grandfather had gas stations. So I
Okay.
saw it from that level, but on a day-to-day level, I saw it from my aunts who
Mm-hmm.
would go to Durban and get these like sort of cheap Chinese discard clothing, come back to Lesotho and sell it at a
Yeah.
premium and make money that
Yeah.
way. So I
Yeah.
always knew that, if you want to make money, you can go out and sell something. You can even bake. They baked a lot. They made traditional ginger beer or beer. They sold that at funerals, at weddings.
And that is so
So
nice.
I
Yeah.
know, right? So, I
Yeah.
was always there to get like the little burnt pieces at the end.
Yeah.
So I watched these women sell and make money. And
Mm.
so for me, that was when COVID hit, because that's when I started my company, it was a
Uh-huh.
no-brainer that, okay, no, now we need to sort of change my angle a little bit. What can I sell? Like, what can I
Right.
do for myself?
Yes.
I don't know how to
Mm.
translate that, but how
Yeah.
can I take my own power back and create
Mm.
value and sell it? Because that's what we
Yes.
do as entrepreneurs. We make money.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how the shift came about.
Hmm. And I know you come from a family of scientists. Your mother is a microbiologist, and particularly the idea of gloves.
Hmm.
Why gloves? I
Mm.
just need to understand that. Yeah, it's yeah.
It's pretty random. It's fine to say it's
Mm,
pretty random.
yeah. Yeah.
But I was living in Brooklyn at the time. And
Mm,
when the pandemic hit, I mean, New York is probably one of the densest places on earth. And
mm.
everyone was indoors. So it was like a bit of a ghost town. But
Ah,
um, there was just masks and gloves everywhere on the street. Everywhere.
I
It was like
see.
we were in
Yeah.
a sea of PPE. So
Yeah.
when I looked out the window, it just felt like, damn, like what's going to happen to all these gloves and all these masks?
Ah, okay.
And so it had started becoming a pain point for me during that time.
Mm,
And then
yeah.
when I started ideating around something to sell, I thought, masks, almost everyone is sewing masks for themselves at this moment. If you have
Yes.
some spare material lying around, you can do that.
Yeah.
Gloves would be a little bit harder to replicate at home. And also, if I were to make them biodegradable, I
Mm,
could, bring this item to market and sort of create a brand around it. Like,
yeah.
so that's when I decided I have absolutely nothing to lose, like nothing
Yeah.
to lose. And I've got
Yeah.
nothing but time on my hands. I'm
Yeah.
going to research manufacturers that can make this thing for me.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I reached out to three manufacturers, and they were all over the world. and
Mm.
one came back to me. They're like, yeah, this is a product we're already doing,
Okay.
albeit it's not our focus right now. It's sort of part of our sustainability initiatives, but
Mm.
we believe in your vision to start this brand, and let's work together. And so that's basically how I even came to um, have like a physical product. I would say the first step,
Yeah.
though, like let's say the next day, right, of
Yes.
me
Yes.
coming up with this idea
Yeah.
was I think I took up my colored pencils and I
Okay.
started designing the packaging. That was like
Hmm.
step number one, 0 to 1. I just designed the packaging
Right.
and I colored it in, and yeah, the rest from there is history.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I know Glubbs. I know. I think I listened to one a clip. I think you had a conversation with someone, and they were asking you how did the name come about, Glubbs.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I would like you to tell us here
Yeah.
how did you come up with the name? Such an interesting, catchy name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and thanks for saying it right, because people sometimes say gloobs, which I'm just like, no, it's
Ah,
still
I see.
obviously gloves. But
Yeah.
I wanted to have a co-founder, and the only person I could think of to be my co-founder was one of my best friends, Carolina, who
Mm.
I had met. She was an exchange student from Denmark in
Hmm.
Bloemfontein. And at the
Ah,
time, she barely spoke English. It was just crazy. You know, she lives in London now, and we're always together in New York. And it's
yeah,
crazy to think we couldn't even communicate with each other back when we were 17 years old.
yeah,
Anyway, long story short, we've had so many creative projects together. And I was like, you're the only person in the world that I would ever consider starting a business with. So would you like to
yeah.
partner with me on this biodegradable glove company that's going to take over the world? And she was like, no. Um,
No.
she was like, no,
Yeah.
not for me. But then she went into this story about how her and her wife, every time they leave the house and put on their gloves, they
Mm.
make sure to check for da 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 da. And I'm like, wait, you said every time you leave the house and put on your what? She said gloves. I said,
Okay.
oh. She was like, yeah, that's what me and my wife call gloves. And I was like, okay,
Ah,
fine.
okay.
You
Yeah.
might not be my co-founder, but at least you gave me the name for my company. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I'm running with it. Yeah.
So that's how
Clubs,
the name
clubs.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you and I, we are talking, we're saying biodegradable. We understand what we're saying, but now to explain further, how your gloves, how are they different from the traditional ones? What do we mean when we say they are biodegradable?
Hmm.
Mm,
So, in the market, there are three sort of gloves that
mm,
dominate.
yeah,
Uh, Latex, nitrile, and vinyl. So
right.
latex gloves are probably the one that people are the most familiar with. They are
Mm,
derived from the rubber tree, and they are great because they really do feel like skin. Um, but the
mm,
problem with that is, first of all, the deforestation of rubber trees. We lose billions of them every year because of the latex glove
mm,
industry. And then also,
okay.
there are millions of people who are allergic to latex. And
Yeah.
so, the glove industry in the 80s then came up with the idea of synthetic latex, which is
Hmm.
nitrile. Now,
Hmm.
nitrile is chemically derived and is hypoallergenic, which is amazing, and it's very
Yes.
flexible
Mm,
as well as strong. So this
yeah.
has now become the standard. If you go to your doctor's office, for example, you see those bright blue gloves. That's
Yeah.
nitrile.
Yes.
The problem is that nitrile takes about 200 years to biodegrade. So they
Mm,
essentially just clog up landfills. And
mm,
your hospitals, every hospital, about 20% of the waste is glove waste.
yeah.
Um, and then we have vinyl. Vinyl
Yeah.
is PVC based, which essentially means it's plastic. And
Yeah.
if you know anything about like plastic in its original form, it's hard, it's plastic
Yeah.
pellets.
Yeah.
So in order to make it flexible enough to fit over your hand, they have to use these chemicals called phthalates, which are plasticizers. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that would be fine if plasticizers or phthalates weren't toxic. Now, what science is uncovering in research is that um, plasticizers seep through the glove wearer's skin, causing hormonal disruption, endocrine disruption. So
Okay.
it leads to issues like testosterone, reduces testosterone production,
Mm.
affects women's breast milk. So you're seeing a lot of phthalates in babies,
Mm.
and they're poisonous. So even things like obesity and infertility can be
Mm.
tracked back to exposure to phthalates, and that's just on
Mm.
the glove user side. The thing
Yeah.
about vinyl is that, and you'll know vinyl because it's a little, I don't know how to describe this. It's a little crunchy. It's
Yeah.
definitely an inferior product, but
Yeah.
they're used mostly in the food business. And so then these phthalates seep into your food, your prepared food.
Yeah.
So those are like the three major types of gloves. And where gloves come in is they are nitrile based.
Mm.
So they wouldn't be very different from what you see in your doctor's office, except that there is a bioadditive in the glove that attracts microorganisms in landfills, which are anaerobic, devoid of oxygen.
Uh-huh.
And so
Uh-huh.
these microbes, once the glove is sat there for a prolonged period of time, between 3 and 5 years, they eat the glove
I see.
completely. And so
Right.
what is released is gases, and then what you have is humus that is left over, which is basically like carbon compounds that can be
Right.
absorbed into the planet. So you're looking at like the difference between a glove breaking down between 200 and 300 years and being poisonous to not only the user, it's also
Mm.
poisonous to the environment, to our
Mm.
gloves that will break down in 3 to 5 years and are hyperallergenic. They
Yeah.
don't have those plasticizers, or
Yeah.
microplastics for that matter. So
Yeah.
that's the main difference.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And talking about hypoallergenic, my primary career is in medical science, and recently I just made a focus group, I was talking with my ex-colleagues in medical science, like, guys, remember how we used to break down in this hives or rash, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
when we use gloves in the medical laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just went on it, and others were saying, yeah, would have rashes.
Oh my goodness.
Others would have some sneezing. One who said, for me, I would go as far as swelling. But mostly for us, it was from the latex gloves with
Mm-hmm.
powder, because you can
Mm-hmm.
have powder-free latex gloves. Then
Mm-hmm.
you can have some with powder inside.
Mm-hmm.
So most of us would react to that powder. And I know there's other people that are allergic to latex.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just choices we had. But for me, then when we were discussing this, I was thinking, personally, I never thought of that glove post use,
Mm-hmm.
after disposal. Where does it go? Okay, it's just medical waste. I don't care. I really never ever thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
And where does it go? Do they burn it? Do they, I mean, throw it? I know I throw it in the disposal bin, but where does it go from there? I really never thought of that. And most of us really don't think about that. And when you talk about how you could see the masks all over the place on the streets and the clubs, that should be worrying. But then we're thinking, hey, we are dealing with COVID here. You're just trying to protect ourselves. So thank you for this idea that came to you, that is so altruistic towards the planet. It's so out of the box. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
coming up with that. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for thanking me.
The medical science fraternity thanks you. No, we do thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And can we use clubs in clinical and medical settings?
Yes, indeed. So
Mm.
just to go back to what you brought up about not thinking of gloves post use, I think
Yeah.
It's a function of the single-use societal addiction to plastics, to single use. I think
Ah,
when plastics were invented, they were just this revolutionary product that, kept your food safe from perishing for months on end, and that had never been the case. I mean, if you think about the invention of the freezer, people would have to eat
mm,
the meat that they bought that same day, otherwise it'd go off. Plastic sort of had that same effect on society, where we could now have this indestructible thing.
mm,
Film over our perishables that could allow
yeah,
us to keep things longer. And so, and it became so prevalent that it just became an afterthought. So
mm,
when I go out and sell, half of my job is actually to alert people, first of all,
mm,
to make them realize how disposable these things actually are, but
mm,
how the impact on ourselves and the environment is not commensurate to the level of disposability. Like, it would have been fine if we just dispose of it and then it breaks down in 10
yeah,
days. But we
yeah,
dispose of it and then it breaks down in 300 years. So
yeah,
obviously the downside, and I'm not asking people to choose between protecting themselves or the environment. That's why Glubbs exists, because
yeah,
ultimately we shouldn't have to. But also we need to think about our actions and how they have a long-term impact on
yeah,
um, on just beyond that moment that we get to use it that one time. Um,
yeah.
but to answer your question, yes, gloves are FDA approved, medical
Hmm.
grade, and food safe, which
Okay,
basically means, and they are industry agnostic in that way. They can be used in food and beverage, in
okay.
janitorial housekeeping, and they can also be
Hmm.
used in medical first aid settings, as well as, clean room, like the labs that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. And so Glubbs won and received American Express grant and mentorship. How
Mhm.
did that recognition and prize money help you?
Yeah, so that
Mm.
was actually early days.
Okay.
Um, I want to say we won that grant in November of 2020, and
Hmm.
I had started the company, or rather came up with the idea, April of 2020. That was one of the biggest validators for me, because at the time I didn't even have uh, product to speak of, really. I had some prototypes,
Okay.
so I could wear the glove and have people feel it, but I was just on the surface.
Yeah.
So when they gave me that, it was a $25,000 grant. I was just like, oh
Yeah.
wow, I really
Wow.
have some runway to build
Mm,
something. And
mm.
because international freight was kind of at a standstill, and I knew I couldn't import goods at that time, but I could build a brand. And so that's
Yeah.
basically what I spent the money on, setting up the website, coming up with the packaging design, what that was
Yes.
going to look
Yes.
like. Um,
Yes.
Actually building out our social media channels, content for
Hmm.
that, paying all the people that was instrumental in helping me do that. So
Yeah.
that really helped me establish, like, the brand.
Yeah.
And the mentoring was also great because there were 100 of us. They gave 25K to 100 entrepreneurs. And we would be
Okay.
on these weekly Zoom calls together and just be inspired by speakers. I remember one of the speakers that came on was Tabitha Brown. And
Yeah.
Tabitha is the content creator,
Okay.
now household name, right? She's so wholesome. Um,
Hmm.
but she came from an acting background. And so when
Hmm.
she came on the Zoom calls as an entrepreneur, I was just like, okay, I'm not this freak of nature
Yeah. Yeah.
that went from the arts to, business. I can
Yeah. Yeah.
actually do this. So it was immense validation on my
Yeah.
part. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That it is done. I can do this. No,
Exactly.
That's amazing. You know, there is a misconception that eco-friendly products are either expensive or less effective. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd say it's sort of like the debate between like fast food and buying vegetables, right?
Yeah,
Have you
yeah,
ever, gone out there and like tested? Um, but I would say no. I would say that's probably something you might want to question as an excuse to not try something new.
yeah.
And that is actually a challenge I would give to the medical industry and the food industry in particular, where I understand that margins are slim. But
Mm,
if you looked at the unit economics, um, we all in any kind of market need each other, right? So for
yeah,
me to be able to drive my prices down where we are competitive, I need a partner like a hospital who will help me order at scale so that I can
yeah.
manufacture at scale, and my cost of goods sold gets less
Yes, yes,
significantly.
yeah.
So, I think direct to consumer, sure. There, I'll be honest and say there is a premium compared to other products. But I think that if you are putting your money where your mouth is and are concerned about
Mm,
not just the health of the environment, but also your own health, then the slight premium, because it's not astronomical, makes
yeah,
sense. So it's sort of like weighing eating unhealthy and then maybe paying a slight premium to eat healthy. But when you eat
yes,
unhealthy, the long term effects of that are you being sick, and a future where you're going to be paying your doctors instead and the pharmaceuticals that
yes.
premium that you could have been
Hmm.
paying to eat
Yeah,
vegetables and keep
yeah,
yourself healthy. So that's
yeah,
kind of how I like to think of it. But I do think that um, as slow as progress is, there is a top down, so governmental, as well as an institutional mandate for companies and individuals to be more responsible when it comes to the environment. And the world is converging towards more sustainable products because
yeah,
the results of global warming and pollution and
yeah.
landfill spilling over, those things are really starting to show up in our weather, in our,
Yes,
sanitation,
yes,
in the
yes.
purity and cleanliness of our water. And so we're
Hmm.
all converging towards being more eco-friendly anyway.
Yeah,
So
yes.
why not be ahead of the curve?
Yeah, yeah. It's no longer just a conversation about global warming. We can see, the after effects. We can see the ripple effect. So I think, you're right. The world is converging towards eco-friendly, products. I think the outlook is positive.
I think so too. And I do
Yeah,
think that people care. I think that people care about their own health and wellness, and that they
yeah,
do care about the environment. But I also think that they care about their pockets. So it's just about putting
yeah.
things into perspective for people.
True. Yeah, of course. And in general, have you seen a shift in consumer behavior towards using more environmentally sustainable products?
Yeah, I do. And
Mm,
I see a concern within the medical field at the sort of at
mhm.
the practitioner level.
Yeah.
The mom and pop private practices that I
Hmm.
serve,
Okay.
who actually buy their own supplies, I see that they're concerned because at the end of the
Mm,
day, they're the users, right? They're the ones who are taking it on and off. Several times a day, also several times per patient.
yes.
So I do talk to a lot of doctors, a lot of dental hygienists that
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Now, the bridge that needs to be made is institutionally. Very rarely are the doctors the ones that are buying gloves on behalf of the entire hospital. You now have
Mm,
the consumables buyers,
yes.
who
Yeah.
buy from distributors, who buy from manufacturers. So it's this whole supply
Absolutely.
chain that needs to
Yes.
be educated. And almost disrupted in a way.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
see adoption from like individual consumers and users, and I see
Mm,
an opportunity to educate at a I guess a more institutional level.
Yes, yes, that's amazing. And how can businesses, industries, and individuals order Glubbs?
Yeah, so businesses can generally reach out to us at info@wearglubbs.com,
Yes,
which is where WEAR Glubbs GLUBBS.com, and
yes,
generally you can reach out to us directly there. We're also all over social media, but I would
yes.
say the best thing is to just email us, and we can figure it out.
We can take it from there. And you ship
Yeah.
worldwide?
We ship worldwide. So right now,
Yeah.
I mean, and trust me, the learning curve from being an actress to selling gloves has
Yeah.
been very, very steep, where um, you have no choice but to sort of learn on the job. And so that's also
Yeah.
the process that I'm figuring out as a businesswoman, as a
Yes.
leader, as a salesperson.
Mm.
So right now we're pivoting our business model towards more wholesale,
Okay.
where we're not necessarily selling individual boxes anymore, which is great. And I appreciate every single person that has bought a box of gloves from me. But we
Yes.
really want to be dropping containers all over the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
So, if you're a hospital, or a lab, or a uh, food franchise that uses
Yes.
gloves, yeah, reach out. We can organize
Please.
the
Yeah.
container to be shipped to you directly wherever you are.
Yeah, and all the best with that pivoting, Fikile. I wish you the best in
Thank you.
that. And what is your favorite book or an impactful book you've come across that you would like to share with our listeners?
Oh, so many. So I'm also a deeply spiritual person.
Yeah,
My parents, what one of the main gifts that they gave to me, being multicultural, was my mom was born in Islam. My dad was born Christian, Anglican is most Basuto'a,
yeah,
but he was a spiritual ninja, I like to call him. And so
sweet.
he
Yeah,
he was very adventurous. Like, he brought meditation to like in the late 1900s, which sounds so
right.
archaic right now. But
Yeah,
I used to be mortified that, why are you doing this? Why are you making us meditate in front of my friends? This is so embarrassing.
yeah.
But I'm a big meditator, and so
Mm,
I think one of the most impactful books in the recent while, there've been so many, is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you've heard about him,
I
but
haven't. Yeah,
he's a wonderful doctor and a wonderful teacher.
yeah.
Um, so that, Becoming Supernatural. I want to say Rhonda Byrne, The Greatest Secret. She's the one who came out with the documentary The Secret.
The secret
Um,
is.
and The Greatest Secret, which is a book, came out
Mm,
around the pandemic. I want to say that was really impactful for
yeah,
me as well.
yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Fikile. We can't thank you enough. And on this, to come and share this amazing journey with Glubbs, and it's so altruistic. Thank you. We really appreciate it. And that's been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And for anyone who's out there that's listening, that's just like, I don't know if I can do this thing, just go for it. We don't know why we're here. And as far as we know, we only live once. So if I can be an inspiration to
Mm,
someone who's on the fence about whether to take a leap into
yeah,
entrepreneurship, I'd say the only way you know if it's going to work or not is to try. So just take the first step.
give it a go.
Hmm.
Fikile, thank you for that. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dipua.
Thanks for listening to our show this week. If you enjoy our show and would like to support us, help us by spreading the word. Tell your friends about Mej and engage on social media. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is @Mej Podcast. Mej My Entrepreneurship Journey on LinkedIn. If you would like to engage with us privately, drop us an email at defoe@mejpodcast.com. Remember, we are available and streaming wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Defoe Machele, and you've been listening to My Entrepreneurship Journey